Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. I appreciate you guys for joining me today. I wanted to give you guys an alternative to Mint that is not necessarily an app or an Excel spreadsheet. When I started my journey, on like pen and paper. So I wanted to look for a pen and paper alternative to plan my expenses in detail. So in today's video, I am going to be sharing my financial planner that you can actually purchase on Mint. I created these for myself a year ago. The intention wasn't necessarily to monetize them, but as people kept seeing them, they started asking me to make some for them. And the easiest way for me was to put them on Amazon so that you can purchase them yourself. In today's video, what I am going to be doing is showing you guys exactly how the planner is laid out. I don't think Amazon gives you the opportunity to see what's on the planner. So this video will serve as a tool for you to actually see what is inside of the planner. I have right here in front of me what they look like. So as you can see, it's a pretty decent size journal. It's not too big, but at the same time, it's not too small. And when you open it up on the inside, you get all of the different sections that I will be going over in detail here in just a little bit. But this just gives you an overview of what it looks like on the inside. So I have two of the author's copy. That's why they have this line here. Right, they have this line here because these are the author's copy for you guys to see, but they are a decent size, and I made all this design myself. I'm not a designer, but I wanted things that were empowering for me and, you know, just fun at the same time. I'm going to show you guys where you can purchase it on Amazon, and then we are going to go through each one of the planners to see what it looks like on the inside of the planner. We are first going to begin by me going on Amazon and showing you guys where you can purchase these planners. And then after we've kind of gone through that section, we're also going to leave the link down below, by the way, for all of these. But we are also going to go through inside. Most of the video is going to be spent with me showing you what the planner looks like and my intention for structuring the planner the way it is. Thank you guys so much. Let's go ahead and get started. I am going to shrink myself. Right here, then printing it under the name Luxe Print Press. It was just kind of a random name that I came up with. And the budget that I currently have opened up is this one, this planner here. I thought the design is simple, but you know, it's kind of universal, but it's simple. So if you come over here and you click on Luxe Print Press, you will see all of the planners that I have available. All of the ones that say finance and budget planners are all the same. I also ordered this one, but unfortunately it was sent to the wrong place, and that reminds me I actually need to call them. This is one of my, you know, this one is so me. Smart Sexy Money is so who I am. And if you keep going, right here is another basic one for just the simple girls. It's an easy, simple design that's just pink, says financial planner. And right below that is one that, I don't know, I think that in a time where there's a lot of division, this particular design really spoke to me. It's simplistic in its design, but it's just about, you know, us staying together, pulling each other up on this journey. It's about community. It's about us holding each other and supporting one another. And then I also have another one here that's also very basic for the men and women. Like, this is for both men and women, right? I can see a man probably, or even a woman who's a little bit more simple, liking this particular design. And I have another one here that says Smart Money. So this particular design is really just super easy and simple. It says Smart Money. And I also just wanted to be able to give you guys a little bit of the specs on these planners. You can buy them in hardcover or paperback. It's a little bit cheaper on paperback than it is in hardcover. And what I do with mine on paperback, I have bought these portfolios and I have my planners on these portfolios, because what I've noticed for paperback, the ends of the planners start to kind of like fold a little bit. And I can show you on, this is the planner that I've been using a lot for work, and what you see here is some wear and tear on the edges of the planner. I don't personally like that, so I use that portfolio to protect the edges of my planner. And the inside of the planner, so the print length is 179 pages. This reading age 10 to 18 is wrong. I'm going to have to go fix that. The dimensions, it's about 6 by 9, which to me is the perfect dimension to keep you active, but it's not too bulky. It can easily go in your purse. I did release this around September 4th, but I created them about a year ago. I was just using them for myself, but then people started requesting them. The full description is down here. It gives you some information on what the overall planner is about. There's a bank account overview section. There's a monthly budget category section. There's a yearly planner section. And then there's a monthly and weekly budgeting section. And then in the end, there's a tracker. And then there's the business and the side hustle section. So this one planner, whether you buy the $12.99 or the $19.99, is all you would need to be able to manage your finances for the whole year. Budget and Flourish. So here are all the different designs. I like this one because this is a great one if you have a male friend who likes things a little bit more simplistic. It's a super, I like the masculinity vibe I get from this particular planner. I don't have a paperback, but I will be working on a paperback for this one. And then of course I have this Budget and Blossom design. So as you can see here, I think, yeah, so the last one is this one. Another design that I really love. I don't have the paperback, but I will be working on the paperback version for this one as well. So as you guys can see, not only when we look at the planner inside, you will see that you have a lot of, it's packed full of options for you to not need a budgeting app. However, you also have a lot of designs that will fit your personality and sass. So this is a little bit of just like the overview of where you can purchase it, where you can purchase the planners, and what some of the designs look like. Now, let's take a look at the inside of the planner in detail. In this channel, I talk about all things finance. You've probably found me through one of my debt pay down video or one of my budget with me video. In today's video, I wanted to talk about tools of the trade. If you've been following me for a while, thank you so much and welcome back. You know that I use Mint quite often to keep track of all of my expenses because all of my accounts are connected through Mint. However, a lot of people don't like connecting their accounts to a software. Or if you're like me, you also like having pen to paper. This tool is one that I created and that I use myself on a regular basis to track both my personal expenses and my business expenses. This is great because I can take this with me everywhere I go. If the internet is not working, I can still see where my expenses and still keep track of my expenses on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. So just like Mint is a great way to organize your finances as a software, this is a great way to organize your finances pen to paper. Let me show you the inside of what the planner itself looks like. When you get the planner, you have the first page where you write down, the planner belongs to you. And the planner is divided into main sections. There's a bank account section. There's a category section, a yearly planner section. There are individual monthly budget sections. You have 13 of these individual monthly and weekly planner budgets. Towards the end of the planner, you have your tracker section at the end of the month. And towards the very end, it goes from personal expenses to business or side hustle expenses. You guys know that I am a big advocate and believer in having multiple income streams So this is where you would begin to track those expenses if you do have a side hustle or a business. So it's a comprehensive business planner that's great for personal and business expenses combined. Now that I've given you a quick overview of what the planner looks like, let's go through each section so that I can run you through how you can use the planner section by section. The bank account section, this is where you're doing your bank account planning. I learned this the hard way personally. You need to have multiple bank accounts that do different things, right? The way I have structured my bank accounts, I have a primary revenue account. This is where all of my money comes through from all of my different income streams, right? Now, depending on, right, I don't mix personal and business expenses. So for my personal expenses, when I get paid by my full-time job, it comes here. When I have some side hustles that are not in a specific LLC outside of my rental income, but when I have some of my side hustle that are not really truly business, they're just side hustles, like delivery driving, when I do delivery driving and all of that, it comes into this account. But then I have what I call operating accounts. The reason why I like to set operating accounts is because at one point I had several operating accounts. I had one for credit cards, I had one for bills. So these were my different operating accounts. I always made sure that no matter what, my credit card accounts had enough for me to pay all of the minimums and a little bit extra on the debt snowball. For my bills account, I knew how much my bills were going to be every 2 weeks, and I always made sure that there was an automatic transfer into those accounts. Now for savings, this is where account planning becomes even more important, because for savings, you might have multiple sinking funds that you are funding at the same time. It's all up to you how you choose to do it. This is how I do it. So the first page on this account is structured with primary revenue account, checking or operating accounts. Oh, by the way, I also forgot to mention, in my operating account, I also have an account that I use on a daily basis. So that's the only debit card that I take with me. And I like to keep that account as low as possible so that I'm not overspending. With that said, it is up to you how you are going to do your account planning. But no matter what, give it some time, think through it, and continue to adjust so that it best fits your system and your model. And if you look here, let's dig deeper now into what you have here. For each bank account, I have the bank account name. So Ally, Capital One, whoever, Citibank, whatever your community bank is. And then you have the account name. I like to name my account, so I will have like bills checking account, car sinking fund, something. So you name it, whatever works best for you. And then I have the account last 4 digit. If it has a debit card, I would have the debit card last digit. And then the use. Well, what am I using this for? I write on here what I want to use it for, and I write any goals, if any, that I have for this account. And the goals can be something as small as, I don't want to keep more than $500 on this account at any given time. Or I don't want to ever have less than $4,000 or $500 in this particular account. And you have this for every single one of your accounts. So I give you here 2 pages of bank account planning. Hopefully you don't need more than that, because that would become confusing. And in the end here, you have a good 2.5 pages of bank account planning. And then at the end, you have your notes. So whatever notes you want to take. I always like to leave room for notes, things to keep in mind, things to track, etc. Now that we've done our account planning, let's move on now to categories. This is the fun part for me. Now, every single one of us, when we have a budget, we set categories. It is up to you to set your categories in a way that fits you best and what your needs are. In this planner, I give you some starting budget categories to work off of. If you've watched my Mint overview and Mint course video that I'm going to link right over here, In that Mint video, there's a specific section on budget categories. What they've done for you, they've preset categories to make it easier for you. And that is what I've also done on this planner. Under your monthly budget category here, you have income, extra income, and total income. I'm accounting for the fact that you would have multiple different incomes because you know that is what I encouraged. I only have one line for extra income, but if you have more than one, there's the note section where you can put your total extra income, but then break down all of your monthly incomes and where they came from in the note section. And then you have your monthly fixed expenses. And right under your monthly fixed expenses, you have your monthly savings. This is a great place to start thinking about, well, what goals do I want to set for myself? In housing, this is where now you write down who is your provider, how much do you pay them, is it fixed or variable? So under mortgage or rent, just write down here who your mortgage provider is or who your rent provider is and the amount. Phone, who is your phone provider? Electricity, water and sewer, cable, waste removal, maintenance, suppliers. This is where at the beginning of every year, I'm writing this down. Who is my provider for each one of these? Transportation, same thing, right? Your vehicle payment, if you have a car note, who is that by? Buses and taxi fare, if you have to do quite a lot of that, maybe you can note that on here too. Insurance, licensing, note all of that on here, right? So this is just an idea of all the different categories that would go into your weekly and monthly planning. Insurance. Do you have home insurance? Do you have health insurance? Do you have life insurance, others, etc.? Note all of this down in this planning section. Do you have any specific expenses for pets that you need to keep in mind? Food, medical, grooming, toys, personal care. Do you have a medical provider? Do you have a preferred hair and nail place that you like to go to? Right? So this is just where you're thinking about each one of your categories and how much you potentially spend in that category every month. I understand for things like groceries, dining out, you won't know the provider. So just X that out and write in here, well, what's the basic amount that I would expect on a monthly basis to spend in each one of these categories. Personal care, I also give you some ideas of what personal care expenses are. And then I give you ideas of what entertainment expenses are. Of course, if you don't have a provider or there are no set providers, just X it out or put, multiple, etc. But focus really on the amount that you would assume you would need in each one of these categories, if any, on any given month. Let's say for a particular category, you don't want to itemize it. For example, entertainment or personal care, even food and dining. I don't want to specifically itemize them. Just come here to the total and write down what you want to allocate as a total for all of these expenses. That would help keep you honest when you start tracking your expenses on a monthly basis, okay? Loans, this is an important one. Do you have different types of loans? Personal loans, student loans, credit card debt, taxes. Do you have any tax liabilities that you have to keep in mind, or any taxes that will be coming due that you have to keep in mind? Savings or investments. I added this here because it's always good to plan for your savings or investment. Retirement account. How much do you want to have in your retirement account? Investment accounts. Maybe you want to invest in starting a business in 2 years or buying a rental property. You can track your savings or investments here. Gifts and donation. Charities. Do you have a family member? That can be a charity. For the sake of gifts and donations, on the charity one, it could be, I want to send my grandmother $50 every 2 months, right? Just for an example. Any legal issue to keep in mind, attorney, alimony. I try to think of as many categories as I possibly could. However, you can add more as you keep going. However, keep in mind, when it comes to budgeting categories, the more simple you keep it, the more likely you are to succeed. Over here towards the end, I have a notes section. But then, as I mentioned earlier, I give you more options to add your own categories in case there's something specific to you that I missed. But do keep in mind, however, that you want to keep this as simple as possible. You don't want to overload yourself with too many categories because it does become harder to track. So let's recap what we've talked about so far. We reviewed your bank account section. This is where you do your bank account planning and you clearly highlight what account is going to do what and why. And then you have a category section, because in order to have the right budget, you need to understand your categories and you need to be tracking expenses based on categories. Now that we've done that planning, let's now move into our yearly planner. In this yearly planner now, we are now digging deeper and looking at our bills, subscriptions, credit card, and different types of debts, sinking funds, and investments. The first part was very high level, right? We're just quickly thinking through, what do we have under each one of these categories? Do they even apply to you? Do they not apply to you? Let's talk about categories for a moment. With your monthly budget categories, if you are a seasoned budgeter, you already know what your categories are. That's great. But if you are a new beginner, this planner gives you a guide of what categories you can start off with and you can begin to track. So use this as a tool and a guide and adjust as you go. In our bills planner, this is where you write down all of your bills. And I've structured this planner in such a way that, let's say you're starting this at the beginning of the year. You will come here and you will write down all of your bills, the name of the bill or the provider, the amount that is due every month, and every month when you pay that off, you will come on here, you will check it. These circles, there are 12 of them for 12 months out of the year. The goal for this planner is that you would buy it at the beginning of the year and it will last you towards the end of the year. So write down all of your bills here. These are your monthly bills that you would write in this top section. In the bottom section, these are your yearly bills. So for example, my Amazon Prime is a yearly bill. My YNAB is a yearly bill. My taxes are yearly bills. So all of your yearly bills, you will write down here. You have 2 pages for these bills. Hopefully that's enough for you. And then your subscriptions. I set up a specific place for subscription because I'm almost separating things that, so for example, if you have Canva subscriptions, if you have TV subscriptions, you will write those down here, right? So you can even separate bills like internet, phone, and other bills with like your Google subscriptions, your subscription to the gym, for example. I will put that here. The reason why it's important for you to track is because you do need visibility as to where your money is going in terms of subscription, because we easily forget that we signed up for something. Another tip that I would give you, bills, these are things that are necessities. Subscriptions, these are things that occur monthly that can be considered bills but are not necessities. That is how I like to segregate my bills versus subscriptions, if that helps you at all. So for example, earlier I mentioned Amazon being a yearly bill. I would probably put my Amazon Prime here under a subscription because it truly isn't a necessity, it's a want that quickly gets out of control. And then here you have credit cards. In the credit card section, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I have 16 lines for you to write up to 16 credit cards. By golly, I hope you don't have more than 16, because if you do, we're in trouble. Now, mind you, I'm close to it. I have 13. So I know I'm in trouble, and this is why I'm an avid budgeter. And I've created all of these tools so that I can keep it all under control and keep track of everything. Debts, you also have 16 sections so that you can write down all of your debts and keep track of when you're paying each one of them. You just come on here, put a check mark, you've paid for it. It will help you stay on track. Sinking funds. So I have two sets of savings, right? My sinking funds, these are my short-term savings. If an emergency happens short-term, this is the money that I need to pull. Let's say my car breaks down. I pull from my sinking fund. If you own a home, there's something that you need to do, some plumbing work. You pull from your sinking fund. Your investments or your long-term savings, this is where you begin to think about what you want to do. This is where you begin to think about your savings for when you retire, or you're saving 10, 20 years from now. This is money that you hopefully don't touch and that you're just putting money in. These are accounts where the money you do not touch, but you're just feeding into, okay? So let's look at the sinking funds or short-term savings section. What are your goals and what amount do you want? And this will also translate into your bank account planning. So let's say that you wanted to have a sinking funds for home, auto and transport, vacation, children going back to school. You know what's important to you. So think about all those different savings that you want to be building. And then in the bottom here, and you will also write down, so after you've written all of these goals, write down the amount for each one. What's a reasonable sinking fund for your home expenses? $3,000-$4,000? I think $5,000 to me is a reasonable amount to have. Right, but also make sure that you have your home warranty that covers appliances and mechanicals. Anyhow, so you set your starting balance, and depending on how depending on how diligent you want to be, you can set an amount per day. This works for people who have jobs that pays them on a daily basis. So for example, delivery drivers that get paid daily, how much do you want to put towards your saving? Or if you are a waiter who gets paid daily. But most people, per month works best. Based on the total amount you have set as all of your sinking funds, that's your required amount that you want to have towards the end of the year as a goal, right? And usually for me, I like to set it for the end of the year, but you can set your own due date here. And then you have your notes down here, of course. If there's something that does not fit into this planner exactly, you write it in your notes. So do you have a starting balance? If it's zero, set it at zero. Your required amount here is most likely going to be the total of all of your goals in your sinking fund. We are going to do the same thing for your investments. And in your investments, this is most likely your 401k, your Roth IRA, your brokerage firm, or your CD accounts, right? Or your high yield savings account. So this is where you put your any type of stock investments. This is not money you would dip into on a daily basis unless it's an absolute emergency, or by using this money, you can get better leverage. This is your 401k, your Roth IRA, your brokerage. You put that information here. If you wanted to start a business in a few years, you can also put that here because you'll be holding that money for a good 2 to 3 years. And the goal is what you're trying to do. 401k is the goal. And the amount will be, do you want to max it out? This year, 2023, it's $22,000. So you will put that on there. I want to max it out at $22,000. Your Roth IRA, Roth IRA is usually, I believe, $6,000. I think right now it's $6,000 or $7,000 is the max. You can write that amount too. If that's too much, write whatever you are comfortable doing at the moment. And you can put down here your starting balance for all of your accounts and how much you will contribute per month, and the required amount for where you want to be at the end of the year or whenever the due date is. Here is another fun little section that I added, vacation budget. When you're working really hard, you're trying to pay off debt, you don't want to completely lose yourself. You need some me time. You need some fun in your life. So planning and budgeting your vacation is very important. So this is where you would do that planning, right? How much would transportation cost? How much would accommodations cost? Food and activity. Just loosely write that here and get a good idea of how much your vacation would cost. All right, with the planning out of the way, we've looked at our bank accounts, we've looked at our categories, we've dug into details of our bills, subscriptions, credit cards, debts, and savings, now every single month, this is the section you will be coming back to on a monthly and weekly basis. So now is the budgeting section. You will write down the month. Let's say the month here is January. You will write it down, the month of January. And then look at this, you guys, there's a calendar. When it comes to budgeting, you really need to have an idea of everything you are potentially anticipating for the full month. Here is where you sit down before the beginning of every month. So if today is December 24th, this is where you look ahead into your budget for January. I like to do my monthly budget planning the last week of the previous month. So for January, I would start looking at my budget the week of December 25th to December 31st. That week is when I am planning the next month. What would the budget look like? What are all of my fixed expenses? You should have written most of that here. You should have had clarity for what your fixed expenses are under your bills, subscription, and debt category. That's why we did that exercise first. You should know your dates. You should know when they're due. You will come here and you will write down exactly when your expenses are due for the month. Rent on the 1st. Water, trash, and sewer on the 2nd, right? Whatever it is, write it down here. So what you're going to do is write down January 2023 and fill in whatever the dates are. You can fill in every single day, or you can just fill in, Usually sometimes I'll just fill in, if the 1st is here, I'll put the 1st, the 7th, the 14th, the 21st. That works for me as a quick guide. Then I will write down every single fixed expense that I have coming up will be written on here. This exercise may sound tedious, but I tell you, it changes your life. And it's not that. You realize that it goes by very quickly. You would also note on here when you get paid. So this gives you a good idea of, okay, on Friday the 1st, I'm going to get paid $2,000. But then based on this calendar, I'm going to have about $1,500 worth of bills due. So I have to modulate how much I spend on food, going out, etc. This is why this is so important. This is your monthly overview. Now, every week we do our budgeting and tracking. So now, the week of January 1st, I will pull this note planner back out and I will look at it and be like, wow, okay, so this week of January 1st, I'm going to have X, Y, and Z in terms of expenses. Your fixed expenses, you've already have clarity on what those are. Because of how much you have in your bank account, you write down your fixed expenses here, which should, for the most part, stay the same. The purpose of this weekly budget is so that you are staying on track, because variable expenses always get out of control on a weekly basis. I would enlarge this to make it a little bit bigger for you so you can really see what this section has to offer. So under your weekly budget, pro tip here, pick the same day and same time for you to track these expenses on a weekly basis. It takes no more than 10 to 15 minutes for you to do it weekly. The reason why you're writing down your fixed expenses again is because you wrote the monthly budget a few weeks ago and you might forget what's due. So when you come back here, you will refer back to your monthly expenses and see that, oh, the week of the 1st, I have rent coming, I have TV bill coming, I have internet bill coming. You will write that on here. But then you also know that, yeah, I ran out of X amount of things for groceries and toilet paper and stuff like that. I might have to spend $200 in toilet paper. Do I have enough in my bank account to be able to offset those costs? This is where account planning becomes very important. In your operating expenses, you already have a set amount for all of your fixed bills. Your operating account where you buy food, all of that, do you have enough money in that account to cover all of these expenses? If that concept of operating expenses did not sink in then, I hope it sinks in now. Your fixed expenses should have already been accounted for in your operating banking account. The rest of the money that goes into your daily spending account, that's where you'll be pulling money for your food, for your shopping, for any other miscellaneous. Debts or savings. So if there was debts that you need to pay, you would account for that here. If there's money you want to put in your savings account, you will also account for that here. So at the beginning of the week, you come here, you write down and budget for things. Your fixed expenses, you already know what those are, you budget for them. Your variable expenses, you anticipate what they're going to be and you budget for them. Your debts and savings, you should already know what you want to do and you budget for it. At the end of the week or the following week, when you're doing your budget for January 7th, you'll be doing two things. You'll be closing out January 1st and setting up January 7th. So January 1st, we came here and we budgeted. January 7th, we come back and we put our actuals. Did I actually spend $200 on food? Or did I go over budget? Did I actually put in X amount into my debt payment, or did I put in more or less? And once you've reconciled all of that, you will put it here. So total income for the week, I brought in $700. I previously had $2,000. You can add that up and put that here. My fixed expenses totaled $500. My variable expenses totaled $400. Debts and savings, I had this much. Here's what I have left over. And you will carry that leftover back here. And that's kind of your starting income, right? And then you would total your income and put that down here. So now, January 7th, we're starting all over again. We're going to note our fixed expenses that are coming up for the week of January 7th. We're going to note any anticipated variable expenses, and we're also going to note any anticipated debts and savings. And January 14th, when we come back to do our weekly check-in, we are writing the actual amount we spent for that week, and we are setting up the week of January 21st. We are finishing up our actuals, setting up the week of the 21st, the week of the 28th. We are finishing up the week of the 21st with our actuals, putting in all of our total expenses. What do we have left over, if any? Hopefully, we have leftovers. But if not, that's something for us to keep in mind for the week after. How much are we anticipating to bring in income? How much are we anticipating to bring in fixed expenses? You keep repeating this until the end of the month. So that's your weekly expense. And the very last week of the month, you once again set up the next month. Now we're repeating what we just did. We come up here, we set up our expenses for the next month. Enter our dates. We entered our fixed expenses. If there's anything big that you're anticipating this month, the month of February, there's Valentine's Day. So we're going to spend a little bit more on X, Y, and Z on Valentine's Day. Adjust your budget accordingly. If there are birthdays, think about all of that as you're setting up the month. And then repeat and start all over. In this planner, you have 13 of these monthly setups. I gave you an extra month just in case something happens, but there is an extra month. So we're going to scroll past all of these 13 monthly setups. And then here I have a tracker. I started this planner. I created this planner because I wanted to pay down debt. That was my number one priority. With that in mind, I was very intentional in making sure that I had a section where I was keeping track of how much I'm reducing my debt. I mentioned earlier that I'm one of those shameful people that has more than 10 credit cards. There's a story around that, so if you can go check my debt payoff video, I'll run you through the whole story of how I came to have 13 credit cards. This is how I kept track of the balance in each one of my credit cards, and I started paying them off. So I wrote the card name and number up here. I wrote down the balance. I wrote down the minimum payments. And this is very important. Let me enlarge this one second so you can see this better. Here is my credit card debt tracker. At the very top here, I wrote down the card. This is where I write the card name. What card is it? American Express Blue Cash Card. Or it's my Capital One Venture card. My balance is $5,600 and something. My minimum payment is $225. But this is very important. You want to know the closing date and the due date, because the closing date is when it reports the amount of balance to the credit bureau. I wanted to lower my balance so that my credit score went down. So this closing date is very important. And then you have the due date. The due date is important so you won't incur any interest. So both of these dates are important for you to know. And down here, I would note every time I would make a payment. What's the date? How much did I make? And what's my balance afterward? I would track all of this down. So this is the tracker where you can do all of that tracking. And I've given you 4 pages to do all of this tracking, right? So in each page, you have 4 cards. So 4 times 4 is 16. So there's enough for 16, and it matches what we had in the yearly planner. And then debt tracker, student loans, car payment. This is where you put all of that. What's the debt? Car note. What's the balance? 32,000 something. Minimum payment, 750. Every time you make a payment, you write it down and you note what your ending balance is. This helps you keep track of, one, am I actually paying this, and is the balance going down? It's an eye-opener when you go through this. This is an eye-opener when you go through this exercise. And I've given you 12 sections for debt tracking. Now, after we've talked about our debts, we want to visualize our payoff, the debt payoff progress. So here you would add up all of your debts, and you would write down how much you are starting with here. So, and as you're paying it off, you're coloring how much you're paying off for each debt, right? So if you've paid off for the end of the month of January, if you've paid off 5%, you would just, or whatever that amount is, you will write it here, and then you will color. I paid off 5%, or I paid off whatever amount, all the way until you've completely paid it off, right? Now, if you've only paid off like 6%, just color it down here. It doesn't have to be exact. It's just a fun thing to do so that your debt process is not a complete drab. And on here, you can write down your goal of how much you want to pay off. For me, for example, I had $195,000 in debt at the beginning of the year. I wanted to completely pay off my credit cards by August. So this is what I use as my visual debt payoff progress. The amount, the due date, the interest rate. I really didn't include the interest rate, but I'm putting down here. You can put it down here because mine with different credit cards, I did not specifically note the interest rate, the goal payoff date, the minimum payment. I lumped all of my credit cards into one loan so that I can keep track of that payment and just kind of see where I was on that journey. And then here, there's a jar where you can do the same thing, but with your savings. With that out of the way, this concludes the section on personal expenses. This could be the end for you, but you know I encourage having side hustles and businesses. And this is where you would start to do some of that tracking. Now this is your business or side hustle section. Similar to the monthly budget category section, similar to your personal section, I also have a category section here. This, once again, is just to give you an idea of basic starting categories. Loans, if there are any loans attached to this business or side hustle. So for example, if you wanted to start a side hustle on making YouTube videos, for example, you could be taking a class on videography. So that could be a loan for education. So I'm giving you a section of that. Taxes is very important. If you're bringing in some money, how much are you setting aside for taxes? Savings and investments. Do you have any savings that you want to put into this business? Gifts and donations, if there are any. Legal, that's a big one. And I added here an accountant. Do you need an accountant? Do you need an attorney? If you're just starting a little side hustle, this may not apply to you, but things for you to keep in mind. I have a section here on vehicles. If your side hustle is Turo or delivery driving, Note all of those expenses here, right? Just start keeping in mind what your categories will be and anticipate those expenses. I have real estate because I encourage doing things like if you own a home and you have extra bedrooms, renting out those bedrooms on Airbnb. That's a quick money-making opportunity for you that's almost overnight and can bear you fruit right away. If you have an actual rental property, note all of that here. I have several rental properties, so I love using this to keep track of my monthly expenses. If you are doing YouTube or digital content, right? And digital content doesn't just have to be YouTube. Let's say you're starting a podcast. Let's say you're starting a t-shirt business, or you're starting a book writing business that you're going to put on Kindle, Amazon Kindle, or Audible. This is a section for all those different projects. So I have one for online content creation, tech gear, cameras, softwares, editing software, freelance or VAs. Do you want to hire people to edit your videos? Supplies. What would you need in terms of supplies? Education. Once again, are you going to be investing in getting some education? Anything else? Add that here. So I am guiding you with some basic sections and categories, but I'm also giving you here room for you to improvise it so that it best fits you. So some of those pages, rental property may not be relevant to you. Let's say you live in an apartment and you can't really rent it out. Hey, but if you live in an apartment, you can get a roommate. That can fit into your rental property section, right? Let's say for whatever reason real estate is not for you. You can scratch that out and write over it, or you can come down here and specifically add projects that best suits you. Axe throwing projects for, there's a guy, that's what he did. He trained himself to be an axe thrower and he started traveling the world throwing axes. Hey, you do you. Add that here. Bills and subscriptions, same thing. Just like with your personal expenses, you will have bills. What are the necessary things you need to make this business run? And what are things that may not necessarily be necessary, but they help you be more successful. But if you were in a financial bind, you could get rid of them and be just fine. Credit cards and other debts, add that here. And similar to what we did in your personal expenses, do you anticipate any monthly expenses from this side hustle? Let's say, you spend Saturday shooting 25 videos, or you spent 1 week traveling to India and you shot all of this footage and you want to send it to a VA to help you edit the footage, clean it up. You can add all of that here and keep track of those expenses. Now, what's different in the business section, I don't have you checking the expenses weekly. If you wanted to check those expenses weekly, you can always go to your personal page and do a weekly check-in. For me, for my business, usually a monthly check-in is sufficient because most of the time I'm not incurring that much expenses on a weekly basis. It's usually on a monthly basis. So this monthly overview is enough for me to keep track of total income and total expenses. Okay, so you have 13 of these monthly overviews. So that is the end of the planner. You did it! If you can be consistent with this planner for a year, you will see a significant change in your bottom line. True financial success is not about what you know, it's about what you do consistently. Thank you so much again for your time. I hope you guys enjoyed that planner overview. If you are interested in purchasing any of these planners for your financial expense tracking and budgeting for the year 2024 and on, feel free to click on the link that we have below. That link will take you to the Luxe Print Press overall page, and you can pick the design that resonates best for you. This is just another alternative for expense tracking that is not a budgeting app or an Excel spreadsheet, but it allows you to be able to keep track of all of your expenses in one binder. The good thing about this is that the cloud cannot take it away from you, or you cannot lose it in all of your Excel files. I'm actually in 2023 going to be doing a combination of all of this, because I think many of us have been traumatized by Mint deciding last minute to get rid of the app. But there are plenty of alternatives out there, and those videos will be coming up here shortly. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and tell me what was interesting for you. If you have questions or an interesting design you would like me to make specifically for you, please leave me a comment down below. I would love to do that. And also, please do subscribe, because it does help small channels like myself grow and bring you more wonderful videos. Thank you guys so much for your time, my dears, and I will see you in the next one.